The message from Station Horizon reached Earth in 6 hours. Within 12 hours, every major government on the planet knew about it. Within 24 hours, the world was in chaos. Admiral Patricia Long stood in the center of the Earth space Command War Room, watching screens that showed news broadcasts from every continent. People were panicking. People were celebrating. People were praying. The discovery of alien life had changed everything in a single day. But Patricia was not thinking about the celebrations or the panic. She was thinking about the words in the distress call. She was thinking about the Keth Dominion. "We know nothing about them," she said to the room full of officers and scientists. "We have no idea how powerful they are. We have no idea what they would do if they learned about Earth." Dr. Henry Cole, the astrophysicist, nodded slowly. "That is true. But we also know that the Velarin described them as conquerors. They harvest other species. They take slaves. They destroy anyone who resists." "Exactly," Patricia said. "And you want us to fly a ship directly into their territory? You want us to announce our existence to an empire of conquerors?" The room fell silent. Everyone understood her fear. Earth had no allies in space. Earth had no experience with alien warfare. If the Keth decided to come for humanity, there would be nothing to stop them. Secretary Nathan Park from the United Nations Space Council raised his hand. He was a calm man, always careful with his words. "Admiral, I understand your concerns. But we need to consider the other side of this argument. We intercepted a cry for help. An entire civilization is being destroyed while we sit here and debate." "A civilization we have never met," Patricia replied. "A civilization that did not ask for our help. Their message was meant for someone else. Does that matter?" Nathan asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Patricia had no answer for it. Commander Daniel Price appeared on one of the screens, speaking from Station Horizon. He had requested permission to address the Council directly. "I have served Earth for 30 years, he said. "I have followed orders. I have done my duty. But I am asking you now to consider what kind of species we want to be." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We spent thousands of years looking up at the stars, wondering if we were alone. Now we know we are not alone. Our first contact with alien life is a message from people who are dying, people who are begging for help. If we ignore that message, if we hide in the shadows and let them die, what does that say about us? What does that say about humanity?" Patricia shook her head. "Commander, I admire your passion, but we have a duty to protect Earth first. We cannot risk our entire species for strangers." "With respect, Admiral," Daniel replied, "if we cannot risk anything for strangers, then we do not deserve to survive." The debate continued for 2 more days. Scientists presented data. Military officers presented strategies. Politicians presented concerns about public opinion. The world watched and waited. On the 3rd day, Secretary Park called for a vote. The question was simple. Should humanity respond to the Velarin distress call? The vote was close. Very close. But in the end, the answer was yes. Patricia accepted the decision with grace, even though she disagreed with it. She was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. "If we are doing this," she said, "we are doing it right. I want our best ship, our best crew, and our best weapons. I want every possible advantage." The ship chosen for the mission was the ESS Endurance. It was humanity's first true interstellar warship, equipped with the experimental warp drive that Dr. Cole had helped design. It carried weapons that had never been tested in real combat. It carried a crew of 120 volunteers who knew they might not come back. Captain Grace Mitchell was given command. She was 43 years old, a decorated veteran of 3 conflicts, known for staying calm in impossible situations. When she received her orders, she simply nodded and began preparing her crew. The night before the launch, Lavra Chan finished composing a reply to the Velarin distress call. It was short and simple. There was no time for long messages. To the Valoran. We are humans from the planet Earth. We heard your message. It was not meant for us, but we heard it anyway. We are coming to help. Hold on. We are coming. The message was transmitted using the same frequencies the Valoran had used. There was no way to know if they would receive it. There was no way to know if they were still alive to receive anything, but it was sent. Humanity's first message to another intelligent species was a promise of help. The Endurance launched at dawn, Earth time. Millions of people watched as the ship rose into the sky and disappeared into the darkness. Some cheered, some cried, some prayed. Patricia long watched from the command center, her face unreadable. She had done everything she could to stop this mission. Now all she could do was hope she had been wrong. Secretary Park stood beside her. Do you think they will succeed? He asked. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. I think they will try, she finally said. And maybe that is enough. Maybe the trying is what matters. The Endurance slipped into warp space, leaving Earth behind. Captain Mitchell stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. Somewhere ahead, strangers were dying. Somewhere ahead, monsters were winning. But humanity was coming. For the first time in history, humans were flying beyond their own solar system. And they were flying not for exploration or conquest, but to answer a cry for help. The message was never meant to be heard by human ears. But humans had heard it. And humans had answered. The signal came at 3:47 in the morning. Station time. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw was alone in the monitoring room when his screen flickered. He had been watching the same data streams for 6 hours, fighting to stay awake. The coffee in his cup had gone cold 2 hours ago. His eyes burned from staring at numbers and graphs that never changed. Then something changed. A pattern appeared in the cosmic background noise. At first, Kevin thought it was a glitch. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. The pattern was still there. It repeated every 47 seconds. Too regular to be natural, too complex to be random. Kevin sat up straight in his chair. His heart began to beat faster. He ran the data through 3 different filters. Each time, the pattern came back stronger and clearer. He reached for the intercom button with a shaking hand. Commander Daniel Price arrived 12 minutes later, still pulling on his uniform jacket. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. 20 years in the Navy and another 10 in the Space Command had taught him to expect problems. But nothing had prepared him for what Kevin showed him on the screen. It is not random noise, Kevin said. Look at the structure. This is organized. This is intentional. Daniel stared at the data. The pattern was beautiful in a strange way. It rose and fell like waves on an ocean, but each wave carried information. Each peak and valley meant something. Wake up Dr. Chun, Daniel said quietly. Tell her we need her now. Dr. Laura Chun was the station's chief communications analyst. She had spent her entire career studying signals from space, hoping to find exactly what Kevin had found tonight. When she saw the data, her hands trembled. This is real, she whispered. This is actually real. She worked through the rest of the night. By morning, she had confirmed what they all suspected. The signal was artificial. Someone had sent it. Someone intelligent. Someone not human. Dr. Sandra Moore joined them as the station's artificial sun began its daily cycle. She was the xenobiologist, the expert on alien life that had never been proven to exist. Until now. The signal is compressed, Lavra explained to the group. Layers upon layers of data packed into a tight beam. It was designed to travel a very long distance. Where is it going? Daniel asked. Lavra pulled up a star chart on the main screen. A red line showed the path of the signal. It started somewhere far away and passed through their section of space on its way somewhere even farther. It is aimed at a point about 200 light-years from here, Lavra said. It was never meant to come anywhere near us. We just happened to be in the path. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. They had intercepted a message between two alien civilizations. A message that was never meant for human ears. Can you decode it? He asked. Lara nodded slowly. I think so. The mathematics are universal. Give me time. She worked for 3 days straight, sleeping only when her body refused to stay awake. The rest of the crew watched and waited. Nobody spoke much. They all understood the importance of what was happening. On the third day, Lavra called everyone to the main room. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking again, but this time not from excitement. I decoded it, she said. The message is from a species that calls themselves the Valoran. They are sending it to another species called the Antari. She paused and took a deep breath. It is a distress call. The Valoran are dying. The room went completely silent. Daniel stepped closer to the screen where Lara had translated the message into English. To our friends, the Antari, we send this message with our last hope. The Keth Dominion has found us. Their ships fill our skies. Their weapons burn our cities. We cannot fight them. No one can fight them. We beg you, if you receive this, please come. Please help us. We do not want to die. Our children do not deserve to die. Please, please come. The message repeated after that. The same desperate words sent over and over into the darkness of space. Sandra wiped tears from her eyes. Kevin looked like he might be sick. Even Daniel, who had seen terrible things in his life, felt his chest grow tight with emotion. The Antari are 200 light-years away, Lavra said softly. Even if they received this message today, even if they have faster than light travel, it would take them decades to respond. Maybe longer. Daniel understood what she was saying. By the time help arrived, the Valoran would be long dead. Their message was a prayer sent into the void, a cry for rescue that would come too late. We heard it, Kevin said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. We heard their message. We are here, right now. We heard it. Daniel felt something stir in his chest. It was a dangerous feeling. It was the kind of feeling that made people do impossible things. How far are they from us? He asked. Lara checked her calculations twice before answering. About 40 light-years. With our new experimental warp drive, we could reach them in 3 weeks. Maybe less. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what Daniel was thinking. They also understood the risks. Humanity had never made contact with alien life. They had never fought in a space battle. They had no idea what they would be flying into, but somewhere out there, a civilization was begging for help. They were screaming into the darkness, hoping someone would hear. Someone had heard. Daniel looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else. He saw the same feeling that was burning in his own chest. Send a message to Earth Command, he said. Tell them what we found. Tell them everything. He turned to look at the star chart, at the distant point where the Valoran were fighting for their lives, and tell them we need to have a very important conversation. The journey through warp space took 18 days. Captain Grace Mitchell spent most of that time preparing her crew for something none of them had ever experienced. They trained for combat. They trained for first contact. They trained for every scenario the mission planners on Earth could imagine, but no amount of training could truly prepare them. They were flying into the unknown. Chief Engineer Paul Torres worked around the clock to keep the experimental warp drive stable. The technology was new and unpredictable. Every few hours, something broke or overheated or made strange noises. Paul fixed each problem with patience and skill, often going without sleep for days at a time. This ship was not designed for a combat mission. He told Grace one evening in the engine room. She was supposed to be a test vehicle. A proof of concept. Grace nodded. I know, but she is all we have. Paul wiped oil from his hands and smiled tiredly. Then I will make sure she does not fall apart. At least not until we finish the job. Sergeant Dennis Carter trained his Marines in the cargo bay every day. They practiced boarding actions, defensive formations, and close-quarters combat. They had never fought aliens before. They did not know what alien weapons looked like or how alien bodies moved. So they trained for everything. We do not know what we are walking into, Dennis told his team. We do not know if we can win. But I know one thing. We are going to fight like humans. We are going to fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we are going to fight some more. His Marines cheered. They were scared, but they trusted their sergeant. They trusted each other. Dr. Lisa Grant set up the medical bay for mass casualties. She organized supplies, checked equipment, and prepared for injuries she had never treated before. At night, she lay awake in her bunk, wondering how many of her crewmates she would lose. On the 10th day of the journey, Grace called a meeting in the ship's common room. Every member of the crew gathered to listen. I want to be honest with you, Grace began. I do not know what we will find when we arrive. The Valoran might already be dead. The Keth might have weapons we cannot fight. We might all die in the first 5 minutes. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I also want to tell you why I volunteered for this mission. I volunteered because I believe in what we are doing. We are not flying across the galaxy for glory or conquest. We are flying to help strangers who have no one else. She looked around the room at the faces of her crew. The Valoran sent their message to someone else. They never expected humans to hear it. They do not know we exist. But we heard their cry, and we chose to answer. That choice defines us. That choice is who we are. The crew listened in silence. Some nodded. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Whatever happens out there, Grace continued, I am proud to serve with every single one of you. We are doing something that has never been done before. We are carrying the hope of our entire species on our shoulders. And I believe we are worthy of that hope. The meeting ended with quiet determination. The crew returned to their duties with renewed focus. They were still scared, but they were ready. On the 18th day, the Endurance dropped out of warp space at the edge of the Valoran system. What they saw made everyone stop breathing. The planet below was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked almost like Earth, but the sky above it was filled with darkness. Dozens of massive warships hung in orbit, their hulls black as night. Weapons fire rained down on the surface, lighting up the atmosphere with flashes of orange and red. The Keth Dominion, Grace said quietly. Paul looked at his sensors. I am counting 37 enemy vessels. Most of them are larger than us. Much larger. Dennis stood behind them, his jaw tight. That is a lot of bad guys. Grace stared at the screen, watching the bombardment continue. Somewhere on that planet, people were dying. Families were being torn apart. Children were screaming for their parents. Open a channel, she said. Broadcast on all frequencies. The communications officer looked at her with wide eyes. Captain, if we broadcast, they will know we are here. That is the point, Grace replied. We did not come here to hide. She took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. Attention Keth Dominion Fleet. This is Captain Grace Mitchell of the Earth vessel Endurance. We have come in response to the Valoran distress call. We demand that you cease your attack immediately and withdraw from the system. The bridge fell silent. Everyone waited. A response came 30 seconds later. The voice was cold and alien, translated by the ship's computers into rough English. Unknown vessel. You are interfering in Dominion business. Your species is unknown to us. Your ship is small and weak. Leave now or be destroyed." Grace smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Negative, Dominion Fleet. We are not leaving." The Valoran asked for help. "We are here to provide it." There was a pause. When the alien voice returned, it sounded almost amused. "Then you will die with them. This is your only warning." Grace looked at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw something stronger. She saw determination. She saw courage. She saw the same fire that burned in her own heart. "Battle stations," she ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The alarms began to wail. The first battle between humans and aliens was about to begin. The first Keth missile struck the Endurance within seconds of the battle beginning. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Crew members grabbed onto railings and consoles to stay on their feet. "Shields holding," Paul shouted from the engineering station. "But we cannot take many hits like that." Grace gripped the arms of her command chair. "Return fire. Target the nearest enemy vessel." The Endurance's weapons came alive. Plasma cannons and railguns fired in coordinated bursts, sending streaks of light across the darkness of space. The first Keth ship they targeted exploded in a ball of fire. On the enemy flagship, Warlord Vraxis watched with surprise. The small alien ship had destroyed one of his vessels in a single volley. That was unexpected. "Interesting," he said. "The newcomers have some fight in them. Destroy them." 5 Keth warships broke formation and moved to intercept the Endurance. They were each 3 times larger than the human ship. Their weapons were designed to crack planets and burn cities. Against a single small vessel, they should have been overwhelming. But the humans did not fight like any species the Kenneyanchin species. The Ken overwhelming, but the humans did not fight like any species the Keth had faced before. Grace ordered her helmsman to fly directly into the enemy formation. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was exactly what the Keth did not expect. "Get us close," she commanded. So close they cannot use their heavy weapons without hitting each other. The Endurance dove into the middle of the Keth formation, spinning and rolling to avoid incoming fire. At close range, the human weapons tore through Keth armor. 2 more enemy ships exploded. A third was crippled, spinning out of control. The Keth were confused. They had never fought an enemy that attacked instead of fled. They had never faced a species that seemed to welcome close combat. "They are insane," one Keth commander transmitted. "They are flying straight at us." "Then kill them," Vraxis replied coldly. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel." The battle became desperate. The Endurance was hit again and again. Fires broke out on 3 decks. The portside weapons array was destroyed. A hull breach killed 7 crew members before emergency seals closed the gap. But the humans kept fighting. Paul worked miracles in the engine room, rerouting power and patching systems that should have failed completely. Every time something broke, he found a way to fix it. Every time the ship seemed about to die, he brought it back to life. "I need more power to the shields," Grace called down. "I am giving you everything I have," Paul shouted back. "This ship is held together with prayers and stubbornness." "But she is still flying." Dennis gathered his Marines at the airlock. A damaged Keth command ship was drifting nearby, its weapons still firing at the planet below. "Captain, we can board that ship and disable their weapons," he said over the communicator. "If we take out their command ship, maybe the others will fall back." Grace hesitated. The boarding action was incredibly dangerous. But they were running out of options. "Do it," she ordered. "Good luck, Sergeant." Dennis and 20 Marines launched across the gap between ships, using personal propulsion packs. They landed on the Keth hull and cut through the armor with breaching charges. Inside, they found horror. The Keth were tall skeletal creatures with 4 arms and no visible eyes. They moved with terrifying speed. They carried weapons that fired beams of burning light, but the Marines were ready. They fought room by room, corridor by corridor, pushing deeper into the alien ship. Dennis led from the front, firing his rifle and shouting orders. Marines fell around him. He kept moving forward. The mission was all that mattered. They reached the weapons control center after 15 minutes of brutal combat. Only 8 Marines were still standing. Dennis planted explosives on every control panel he could find. "Fire in the hole," he said, and pressed the detonator. The Keth command ship went dark. Its weapons stopped firing. On the surface of the planet, the bombardment paused. On the Endurance, Grace saw the explosion on her sensors. "The command ship is disabled," the tactical officer reported. "Sergeant Carter's team did it." Grace allowed herself a moment of hope. But the battle was not over. More Keth ships were moving to surround them. The Endurance was badly damaged. They could not survive much longer. Then something changed. On the surface of the planet, the Velerans saw what was happening. They saw a single alien ship fighting against impossible odds. They saw strangers dying to save them. Elder Solith, leader of the Veleran survivors, stared at the sky with tears in his eyes. "Who are they?" he whispered. "Why are they doing this?" He ordered every Veleran ship that could still fly to launch. It was not many. A dozen small vessels, barely armed, no match for the Keth fleet. But they flew anyway. Warlord Raxus watched the battle turn against him. His command ship was disabled. 3 more vessels had been destroyed. The Veleran were launching counterattacks. And the human ship, that impossible little ship, was still fighting. He had never retreated before. The Keth Dominion did not retreat, but he had also never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that would not stop. An enemy that came from nowhere to die for strangers. "All ships," he ordered, his voice bitter. "Withdraw. We will return with a larger fleet." The Keth warships began to pull back, jumping to warp space one by one. Within minutes, the sky above Veleran Prime was empty except for the battered Endurance and the small Veleran ships. Grace slumped in her chair, exhausted beyond words. "Transmission coming in," the communications officer said. "It is from the planet." Elder Solith's voice filled the bridge, translated by the computers. "Unknown vessel. Human vessel. We do not understand. Who are you? Why did you come? Why did you fight for us?" Grace took a deep breath and answered. "We heard your message. It was not meant for us, but we heard it anyway. Where we come from, when someone calls for help, you answer. No matter who they are. No matter the cost." There was a long silence. Then Elder Solith spoke again, his voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you. 1,000 times, thank you." Grace smiled through her tears. "You are welcome." The Endurance landed on Veleran Prime 3 hours after the battle ended. The ship was barely holding together. Scorch marks covered the hull. Entire sections were open to space, sealed with emergency patches. Of the 120 crew members who had left Earth, 37 were dead. Another 40 were wounded, but they had won. The landing site was a field outside, one of the few cities that had survived the bombardment. Thousands of Veleran gathered to watch the strange vessel descend from the sky. They were tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They moved with grace and spoke in musical tones. Captain Grace Mitchell was the first human to step onto alien soil. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood. Her face was exhausted, but she stood straight and proud as Elder Solith approached her. The Veleran leader was old. His skin was weathered, his movements slow, but his eyes burned with emotion as he looked at the woman who had saved his people. "Captain Mitchell," he said, his voice trembling. I do not have words to express what I feel. We sent our message to the Anthony, hoping they might come. We never imagined anyone else would hear. We never imagined anyone else would care. Grace shook her head. We could not ignore your call. It is not who we are. Soeth looked past her at the damaged ship and the wounded crew being helped onto the ground. He saw humans carrying their dead. He saw humans crying and holding each other. You lost so much, he said. You lost so much for people you never met. Why? Grace thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about Kevin Shaw, who had first detected the signal. She thought about Commander Price, who had argued for humanity to respond. She thought about Admiral Long, who had opposed the mission but wished them well anyway. She thought about the 37 crew members who would never go home. Because that is what humans do, she finally said. When someone needs help, we help. When someone is in danger, we protect them. It does not matter if we know them. It does not matter if they asked us. We heard your voice in the darkness, and we came. Soeth was quiet for a long time. Then, he did something unexpected. He bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect among his people. Then humanity is blessed, he said. And the Valoran will never forget what you have done. In the days that followed, the humans and Valoran worked together to treat the wounded and honor the dead. A memorial was built for the fallen crew members, the first human graves on alien soil. The Valoran promised to tend to them forever. News of the battle spread across the galaxy through communication. Networks humanity did not even know existed. The Keth Dominion had been challenged. For the first time in centuries, someone had fought back and other species took notice. The Anthony, the original recipients of the Valoran distress call, finally received word of what had happened. They were a powerful civilization, old and cautious. They had planned to respond to the Valoran message eventually, when it was safe, when they had gathered enough ships. But the humans had responded immediately, without waiting, without calculating the risks, without asking for anything in return. Remarkable, the Antari Council said when they heard the full story. Who are these humans? Where did they come from? The question echoed across dozens of star systems. Smaller civilizations, species who had lived in fear of the Keth for generations, began sending messages toward Earth. They asked questions. They offered friendship. Some simply said thank you. The Keth Dominion sent a different kind of message. Warlord Vraxis, humiliated by his defeat, swore revenge. He promised to bring a fleet 10 times larger and burn Earth to ashes. But other Keth commanders were not so certain. They had seen the battle recordings. They had watched a single human ship fight against impossible odds. They had seen humans board a warship and destroy it from inside. These humans are dangerous, one commander warned. They fight without regard for their own survival. They do not flee. They do not surrender. Perhaps we should not provoke them further. The debate within the Dominion continued. For now, at least, they did not attack Earth on Valoran Prime. Elder Soleth gave a speech that was broadcast to every species who would listen. Today, I stand before you to tell you about a miracle, he said. 3 weeks ago, my people were dying. We cried out for help, but our cry was not meant to reach anyone for decades. We had given up hope. He paused, remembering the despair he had felt. Then strangers appeared in our sky. They came from a world called Earth. They call themselves humans. They heard our message by accident, but they did not ignore it. They flew across the stars to save us. They fought for us. They died for us. They asked for nothing in return. His voice grew stronger. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if the humans will become a great power in the galaxy. But I know this. They are good. They are brave. And when the darkness came for us, they answered with light. He looked directly into the camera. Remember the humans. Remember what they did. Remember that when we were alone and afraid, they heard our cry. And they came. Months later, Commander Daniel Price sat in his monitoring station near Neptune, the same station where Kevin Shaw had first detected the signal. The galaxy was different now. Humanity was different now. A new alert appeared on his screen. Another signal. Another message buried in the cosmic noise. This one came from a different direction, a different species, a different emergency, another cry for help. Price smiled and forwarded the message to Earth Command. Humanity had heard. And humanity would always answer. In the vastness of space, in the endless darkness between stars. A new truth had been established. Some messages were never meant to be heard, but humans were always listening, and humans would always come.